Okay, so this is my presentation about communion and how it connects to Sweet Thursday by John Steinbeck. So, uh, so the passage I chose was from Luke. I chose out of the three depictions. That's where it's from. You can see. So, in Luke 22, 14 through 20, it says, when the hour came, he took his place at the table with the apostles. He said to them, I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer, for I tell you, I shall not eat it again until there is fulfillment in the kingdom of God. Then he took a cup, gave thanks, and said, take this and share it among yourselves. For I tell you that from this time on I shall not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of God comes. Then he took the bread, said the blessing, broke it, and gave it to them, saying, this is my body, which will be given for you. Do this in memory of me. And likewise the cup after they had eaten, saying, this cup is the new covenant in my blood, which will be shed for you. So in this moment in the Last Supper, Jesus is telling them, his apostles, that he knows that this will be the last time he'll be able to share a moment like this, and that after this moment things will not be the same. Um, yeah, so he's basically sharing a part of himself, his the bread and the wine, which he's considering which in this moment he's considering his blood and his bread. I mean, sorry, his he's sharing the wine and the bread, which he's considering his blood and his flesh, uh, and basically sharing this part of this massive part of himself with his apostles as like an affirmation of his relationship with them and a commitment to his desire to bring the kingdom of God, to make their society bring them closer to God. So basically, this the symbolism. The Britannica says that the Eucharist it's a ceremony in which the bread and wine representing Jesus's flesh and blood. It's a ceremony which represents Jesus's flesh and blood respectively. Basically, the sharing of blood and flesh. It's like affirming a commitment to God. Um, it's basically Jesus ev sharing himself with everyone in on earth who like takes the communion. He's sharing himself basically trying to build a relationship with them. And those who receive the communion are receiving a part of Jesus to represent like them choosing to form a closer relationship with him. Um, and yeah, it's basically it's basically the communion in the Bible. The Last Supper is like shedding. It's like no, it's about like commemorating a friendship, shedding the past because they know that from that here on out, like just even if they don't want it to happen, even if they don't want Jesus to be lost, even they don't fully know what's going on, but they know that like something that he is going to be betrayed. But they know that things aren't going to be the same after this, even if they don't want it to be. So they're right now, so during that Last Supper, Jesus is asking his disciples to commemorate him. So in Sweet Thursday, the context of this particular moment is that Doc, the biologist, he's returning to California from after World War II. He's back at Western Biological Laboratories, and he's really lonely. He can't really get back into his old work habits. And Susie is a new resident of Cannery Row. I think she's coming from San Francisco or somewhere else in California, and she's working at the Bear Flag restaurant, which is now owned by Fauna. And so Fauna, who prides herself on getting her employees like married off, um, sets with good men, sets Susie up on a date with Doc, and so it's and so Doc and Susie's dinner is at first like slightly awkward, like since earlier in the day when they first met, it wasn't really it didn't really end with on good terms. So, however, by the end of their date, Doc agrees to show Susie a place that she had been interested in, which he had mentioned as being uh, an important place to him, which is the dunes by the sea, which is where, yeah, well, it's where he met this seer earlier in the novel. So, communion, sharing of life, affirmation slash reaffirmation of a relationship, it's and a turning point, kind of. So like, yeah, so Doc and Cece's date, devised by Sana to relieve them of their loneliness, begins with a sharing of a table, having dinner in each other's presence. And like Doc doesn't immediately care for a relationship in this moment. He's not he's trying to convince himself that like this isn't what he needs. He thinks he needs to get back to work. But yeah, but the fact that he's willing to share a present to share a part of himself with Susie, the dunes at sunset, which he's emotionally attached to based on his I think based on his interactions like earlier in the novel with like Asir and like in general he has never shared with anyone else. So the fact that he agrees to share this part of himself with Susie when he with Susie like earlier in the dinner she was interested in seeing those dunes that when he talked since he mentioned them. So the fact that she was willing to see that and the fact that Doc was willing to like give that part of himself to her um was kind of an act of communion between them, a sharing of a part of himself. And yeah, it doesn't have to be food, it doesn't have to be like anything like you consume like you physically it doesn't have to be something you physically consume, but it's something that a part of yourself that like a part of yourself that you're willing to like take out and just something that you're comfortable with like sharing some a deep part of yourself that you're comfortable with sharing with someone else. Like Jesus was comfortable with like sharing his like with his skin, I mean his flesh and his blood, and Doc was comfortable with like opening up slightly, even though it was never really something he'd ever like done, or like not something that like the residents of Cannery Row knew that he had ever done or had seen him ever do. And the Last Supper, in the Last Supper, Jesus knew that that it was a turning point. It was going to be a turning point in his life. And during this dinner, although Doc and Susie are still like iffy about like continuing on with their relationship, everyone else on Cannery Row, like Fauna, Mac and his crew, and Joseph and Mary, the new owner of the grocery store, they all know that like this relationship can be something else. It can bloom, and they know that like them that Doc and Susie meeting is a turning point in uh for both a turning point for both of their relationships and for the wider community. Like things won't be the same after this. And these are my works cited. So thanks for watching.